Bonjour, and welcome back to another episode of Buzzed Pucks. Like always, I'm Bert.
I'm Clay.
Today we're just going to do a little lead-in show to the season. Season starts tomorrow. Clay, would you...
Today we are drinking Single Cut Beersmith's Eric Moore Cowbell. It's a chocolate vanilla stout with nitro. Let's get this started.
1, 2, 3. Hey. Oh, and just for anybody who was wondering last episode, because we didn't do the beer shout-out, we were actually still drinking Two Roads Brewery, same as the first episode. But it was pointed out to us that we didn't mention.
And we had a variety pack.
Yeah, we had a variety pack.
So we didn't specify.
We're going to try to do, I guess, like single craft beers, but we'll see going on. Some city, like I said in the first episode,
this
some cities might be...
This one's out of Astoria.
Astoria, New York, yeah. I think as close as we're going to get to Manhattan.
As close as we're going to get.
Finding craft beers where we are. So yeah, we're going to do a little lead-in. We're just going to mention any injuries that happened during the training camps, any signings.
Really
we have
just
a couple
news from...
Yeah, really just news. We have a few overarching things that we're going to discuss. But, I'll start. The only thing of note from the Hurricanes is that Jake Gardiner is out for the year. Seems like a hip injury. Hope for a quicker recovery than that for him, of course. But I don't think that really hurts the Canes that much. Their blue line's pretty deep.
Yeah.
They even added Ethan Bear.
They're going to miss him, but
they'll miss him, but I think they'll make up for it.
Yeah.
Chicago, just going along with the defenseman injuries, Chicago Caleb Jones is injured for about 6 weeks, they're saying. I didn't write down what the injury was, but he's out for 6 weeks. I'm just going to keep going. Colorado, Pavel Francouz, who is their backup goalie, is out for about 4 weeks. That really sucks for him because he was hurt the entire season last year.
Oh, really? Oh, that sucks.
And it was part of the reason Colorado had kind of up and down goaltender play, because I think Grubauer was out for a chunk of the season last year as well. So, that sucks. I hope he gets back in the lineup sooner rather than later, because when he was healthy, he was playing pretty well for them. Colorado, for some reason, also signed Jack Johnson after his PTO for 1 year, $750,000. Columbus, Nathan Gerby's out for about 5 months. But on a plus side, Max Domi returned in the final preseason game, I think ahead of schedule.
He was supposed to be back in December.
So way ahead of schedule. So that's great. That's great for Domi and Columbus. And then one thing from the Islanders that I thought was odd was that they sent Richard Panik to the minors. They just got Panik in that trade for, I think, Nick Leddy from Detroit.
Yes.
And they sent him to the minors. So, I'm sure he'll be back up at some point in the season. And, he's just depth anyway. But, it's always interesting when you get somebody in a trade and then you immediately send them to the minors.
Yeah, 100%. I don't have that much. We'll start with...
Yeah, this is going to be kind of a quick episode.
The Kings, Byfield, with a leg injury, out for about a month.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Did he make he's on their main squad,
He is on their main squad.
Oh, that's exciting, though. He'll be back a month into the year. That's not too bad.
I'm a little all over the place. Colin White on Ottawa is out for 4 to 6 months with the shoulder injury and surgery.
That sucks.
So they signed Tyler Ennis
did they?
For 1 year as a replacement.
Yeah, just sort of spare part. That sucks for Colin White. He's a younger guy, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's been trying to prove that he belongs, that he got a long-term deal. And
always sucks when you get an injury.
Yeah. Out of Florida, Alexander Barkov signed.
I think we mentioned that in the preview episode, didn't we?
$10 million.
$10 million per.
Yeah.
We
mentioned that he
needed that.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, he was going to be UFA, and somebody was going to give him money, and Florida decided that they were going to give him money. So good for them.
They talked that he wanted an extension, and they gave it to him.
I honestly think he's worth every penny of that and every year of that.
Yeah.
Barkov is he is one of the best centers in the league. I mean, maybe
he's their star.
He's not blowing people's doors off like a McDavid, but he's just all around good. He's like Patrice Bergeron, sort of. He's like a younger Patrice Bergeron. He's like good defensively. He can pot some points, Worth every penny. Certainly worth every penny.
Where else am I? So, a lot of stuff happened. A lot of stuff happened with Montreal. Honestly.
Montreal.
So, unfortunately, they lost Carey Price to the Player Assistance Program.
Yes, so...
He checked himself in.
Yeah.
It has been stated by his camp, I believe, that it is
and
mental health.
And Montreal, too.
Yeah, this is mental health. He was dealing with non-COVID illness, plus coming back from injury, so he just needed some time to recover.
That's understandable. I believe I read that he is out minimum 30 days.
Minimum, yes.
After going into that program, but, there's no timetable for his return.
It's basically take all the time you need.
Yeah. He deserves it. He doesn't deserve to go in. I don't want him to go into that program. Don't get me wrong. He deserves a break. If he needs a break.
But they had signed Jake Evans for 3 years.
Oh, yeah. He's a good center, I think, right? Young center.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then also they claimed Adam Brooks from waivers, but
yeah, I mean it's just
some good depth.
Just depth.
That's really what I got for Montreal. For the Canucks, they've been having a rough time right now. Both that I would say they're good and bad. So they signed Pettersson and Hughes.
Thank God.
To pretty good deals.
Yeah, I honestly think they're good for the players and the team.
Yes. So Pettersson's for 3 years.
Right.
7.35 million. I believe he will still be a restricted free agent at the end of this.
I think so. I think he's only 21 or 22, right?
I think it ends up being his last year of restricted free agency when that happens. And it's that'll
be scary.
The same with Hughes. 6 years.
Maybe it's Hughes I'm thinking of was the younger of the two. But honestly, no, he'll still be an RFA.
Yes.
When that
so
both, yeah.
Hughes will be a RFA at the end of this contract as well. I mean, next year Besser's up. So we'll see what happens with that.
No, Hughes is going to be a UFA.
Really?
At the end of it, yeah. But Pettersson will still be an RFA. But they got Hughes for longer too.
Yes.
And theoretically, by that time, the
cap
should be up. I would think quite a bit with this TV deal. But we'll see.
The Canucks trade Ulevy.
Ulevy.
To the Panthers. So back to Florida.
Yeah, back to Florida.
For some depth, guys.
Yeah,
he's been there for 5 years. He hasn't really cut it.
He was the number 4 overall pick, I think Ulevy was, and he just really hasn't developed. Yeah. And that maybe's not 100% on Ulevy himself. That might be on the Canucks for what they're doing with him too.
Hopefully, a change of scenery just does him a little bit.
Yeah. They got I think a depth defenseman and a depth forward.
Yes.
So.
Brandon Sutter is out long term.
Yeah,
due to fatigue.
Oh, to fatigue. Oh,
due to fatigue, due to COVID.
Right.
From last year.
Yeah, COVID's a hell of a sickness.
He's still dealing with that.
Get your shots, folks.
And then Hamonic got waived.
Travis Hamonic. Yeah, he was put on waivers,
but no one claimed him. It seems like he's going through some things, so they're just letting him take time as well.
I think last I heard there is some personal thing going on with him and his family, maybe. But, we're not going to speculate on that. So maybe he got sent down to the waivers or down to the minors just to save the Canucks some money while he deals with that.
Right. So
and I'm sure he agreed to do it.
So they're probably just letting him take all the time that he needs as well. But
it's fine. I mean,
all of those things do kind of hurt their depth.
Yeah, but they're young guys are still there. They're going to have Miller, Pettersson, Besser, Horvat, and Connor Garland. Their top 6 looks pretty good, actually, to me. And at least on paper, the defense looks okay. But
it's the bottom 6 where they lost that depth. So
as has been evidenced with Edmonton the last few years, depth is important.
All right, next up is Seattle.
Seattle.
They did announce Giordano as their captain.
Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer. Should have. I was gonna guess if anybody on that roster was gonna be the captain this year. It was gonna be Giordano. Yeah.
But coming down today, the Kraken are down 5 players.
Yeah, to COVID. That happened like an hour before we started doing this.
Alexiak, McCann, Johansson, Donskoy.
Not even like they're down 5 guys. They're down 5 of like their top guys. Exactly. Their higher tier guys.
Welcome to the NHL.
Yeah, Jesus. Well, hopefully all of them are not non-symptomatic and.
Well,
they'll be back after a week or so.
This doesn't even have to have them be testing positive. They could have been close contact.
That's true.
But just not tomorrow's game.
Yeah, so they will not be playing in the first game ever for Seattle, which is very exciting. Tomorrow.
Woo!
Oh, happy Indigenous Peoples Day, by the way, everybody. That's when we're recording this. The newly minted holiday.
What else? Toronto. At Toronto, Matthews is out for.
Oh yeah, I saw the first week or so. Yeah.
Wrist, and then McCabe is out for 8 weeks due to his thumb, where I believe he needs surgery.
Oh. Yeah, he was playing okay for them last year too, if I remember correctly. Mikheyev. I think he's on the younger end. He was a good depth guy, so that just hurts their depth.
Yeah.
And from what I've heard with Matthews, it's not particularly serious. He's just out for like this first week of games. I think it's 3 games maybe that he's out for.
Matthews is out, only 3 games.
So hopefully he'll be back after that.
But going back to like the restricted free agents, that really only leaves Tkachuk.
Yeah, Brady Tkachuk. Yeah.
And they, last I heard,
is the only major one anyway,
are not really close to a deal.
Yeah.
Brady wants a bridge deal, while
they want him to sign an 8-year deal probably.
Yeah. So let's see who wins.
Yeah. I mean, I think the rule is this happened with Nylander with Toronto a couple years ago, where there was a standoff, and I think he has to sign before sometime in December to be eligible to actually play.
Didn't Nylander sit?
He did. It was at like what's it called? The 11th hour. He signed whatever garbage contract that he has, and so he played, but he didn't play that well because he wasn't even allowed to practice really.
Right.
So people were like, "Oh, see what happens." It's just like, well, yeah, but
we'll get that money.
He's trying to get what he thinks is fair for him, which every player should do, regardless of what team you cheer for. Like, you should be happy if a player is leaving your team to get paid a lot of money somewhere else. Yes. As sad as I am to see players go from my team, like, I'm always happy when, like, oh, okay, he got $5 million. There's no way we could have paid him that.
100% make that money.
Make that money, guys, because you can have horrific injuries and, your career could be over.
Exactly. So
make that money while you can with those ironclad NHL contracts. So
that's all I got.
That's all you got? Yeah, I got a few things. The major thing with the Rangers is they signed Mika Zibanejad for 8 years, $8.5 million.
That's a bad man.
If he repeats what he did last year, which was, I think he was on like a 40-goal pace last year with the shortened schedule.
He is a scary man.
He was like scoring hat tricks like nobody's business, I remember last year.
He keeps scoring 5 goals against the Capitals.
I know.
It's
the one thing, the 8.5 I'm okay with. The 8 years is like it's just, and it's only because he's 28 already.
Right.
So that'll take him through 36. Maybe he plays well up into that. He's not a particularly physical player. He's
more of a skill guy.
So he might be okay. But like I've said on the first couple preview episodes, I don't love contracts that are like over 5 years.
Except
if it's their like definite star player, like McDavid, Barkov, McKinnon, guys like that getting 8 years contracts. You're like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Zibanejad is maybe not quite that star tier that they are, but like one notch down.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's horrible, but I don't know. Taking him to 30, if he was like a few years younger, I would have no problem with it. Yeah, I'd have no problem with it. And locking younger guys up to 8-year contracts, I normally don't have a problem with either. But we'll see. But there are some other overarching implications for this signing as well. Is I think this essentially takes New York out of any Eichel deal.
Yeah, 100%.
Eichel makes $10 million a year. He deserves it when he's healthy, certainly. But the cap, the way it is for the Rangers, I think they have about $7 million in cap right now. So they would have to get Eichel. They would have to convince Buffalo to either keep part of his salary, or they would have to trade at least $3 million off somewhere in there to make that work. Now, yeah, it could still happen, but I don't think so. I don't really think the Rangers need Eichel either. Their center depth is Zibanejad and Strome, 1 and 2. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Maybe you could make an argument you could find an upgrade to Strome, but Eichel is like kind of overkill in that situation.
Strome has played well since moving to New York.
He has, yeah, he has. So, like I said, I think Eichel would be kind of overkill in that situation, so I don't really think they need him.
No.
Some of the other implications for it, next year they're going to have about $19 million in cap, including this new contract. But they have to sign Adam Fox. The
Norris winner? Yeah.
The Norris winner, who is 23, I think. You got to sign him. So, maybe they're working on that right now.
You can't let him walk.
You cannot let him. Well, he's not. He's an RFA,
but still.
I have a feeling somebody might offer sheet that guy.
100%.
People or teams don't seem to want to offer sheets unless it's vindictive towards the other team. Carolina. But for a guy who's won a Norris Trophy and he's under 25 years old, somebody's going to be like, "Here's $10 million. Come play over here. We'll give up 4 first-round picks for him." Well, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
They also have to sign Kakko and Strome, like I just mentioned. Now, Kakko, I don't think has earned a huge contract as of yet. He hasn't really played that well his first couple of years. Now, I mean, this year he could explode, score 30 goals, and he could be like, "Give me $6 million." And you're like, okay.
Okay.
Strome, I think he's making 4.5 right now. You could probably argue him up a couple $1 million to 6.5 as a second-line center. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibilities. So maybe they'll have enough money to sign all 3 of them, but, it could get dicey there. And you can't start sacrificing your depth either. Keep your stars, but, sometimes you can't keep all of your stars.
You have to convince them to not make.
Yeah, you have to be
the most amount.
What if you left some money on the table? We could make this team better.
What Tampa was able to do.
Tampa was able to do that. Pittsburgh was able to do that too with Crosby and Malkin, really. But
something Toronto can never do,
or Edmonton, and I think that a lot of those players on those 2 teams deserve that amount of money, but. Sometimes you got to be like, hey, what if you threw us a couple $1 million in the cap?
Right.
But anyway, so yeah, we'll see. I have to imagine they're working on that Fox contract. They got to be. They would be crazy not to get him under contract because he could win the Norris again this year. You never know.
No.
And then he could be like, I should be the highest paid defenseman in the league. Give me what Erik Karlsson's making. And then you got to be like, I guess you're right. I mean, I don't know. But I could see Fox.
I do think New York is too committed to the rebuild to give him $11.5 million.
I don't think he's going to get $11.5 million. But I could see him being like, well, Cale Makar just signed for, what was it, 9 or 9.5?
9.5.
Give me that. And they could be like, okay. Yeah.
They'd kind of have to do it.
Yeah, I would do it. Yeah. So let's move on to Philly. Really, the only news about Philly is they have a lot of injuries. Kevin Hayes and Sam Morin are both out for 2 months. Now, Morin is kind of a depth defenseman. Hayes is their second-line center.
Mm-hmm.
And then another depth guy, Wade Allison, is out indefinitely.
That's never good.
No, you never like to see that. Now, that doesn't mean forever, but they don't know when he's coming back. They do have some other younger depth guys on, injured as well. Some for just a couple weeks, some for a little longer. But, this is really eating into their depth already. Yeah. And without Hayes in their lineup, their center depth is kind of weak. Yeah. Now, they could fix that by flipping Giroux back to center until Hayes comes back, but it's not a particularly intimidating center depth. they have Sean Couturier, who's very good, but like past that, you're like, oh boy, where's Kevin Hayes? So we'll see. I mean, maybe they'll play really well.
Didn't everyone clown on that contract or the trade when that happened?
Yeah, I think he kind of earned it the year after he signed it, but then last year he had kind of a down year. But Philly kind of did in general.
Everyone had kind of a down year last year.
So we'll see if he comes back and he, can put numbers back up. I don't think anybody will care about that contract, but I think it was 7 years, $7 million per, and everybody was like, "Whoa,
yeah,
that was out of nowhere." We'll get back to Philly in a second. During one of the overarching storylines. For Pittsburgh, Zach Aston Reese and Jake Gensel are both in the COVID protocol, but as of today, they're both skating with the team again. So Neither one of them were symptomatic. I believe they both returned to practice. I don't think they're going to play in the first game of the season, but they could be back for the second game of the season. And then also returning to practice was Sidney Crosby, who is slightly ahead of schedule.
For Pittsburgh.
Slightly ahead of schedule, I think. They did predict that he was going to maybe miss the first week. That was their guess when he had the surgery. So it seems like he's on track for that.
Yeah.
So, so moving past Pittsburgh onto St. Louis, another interesting waiver person was Logan Brown, the guy that they just traded for Zach Sanford for.
Yep.
And so they sent him down to the minors as well. Which I think is really funny because if he doesn't play 30 games, Ottawa has to give him a fourth round pick. So, my first thought is like, are they doing that so he doesn't play 30 games?
100%.
I feel like fourth round picks aren't that beneficial, but maybe he's not ready. It's still a pick. Maybe he's also just not ready to play. But 30 games is less than half the season, so they could call him up in a month or two, and he's there for the rest of the season. They also signed James Neal after his PTO there for the same as most of the PTO guys are getting 1 year, $750K.
Yeah.
Oh, back to Pittsburgh. Brian Boyle, who was on a PTO with them, is also going to sign a 1 year, $750.
Vancouver did not keep Chase on.
Yeah, there were some puzzling ones that were like, oh, these guys look good on their PTOs, and then they just released them.
Yep.
I think, it was the Islanders released
Gustafsson.
After he looked pretty good in camp, and they were like, bye. And then apparently he's going to sign with Chicago. He did have a 60-point season with Chicago, so.
Oh, yeah, no.
Actually, that makes sense after that Caleb Jones injury, too.
Yeah.
So. And then lastly, Washington, Ovechkin did get injured, I think, at their last preseason game.
Against Philadelphia.
Yeah. It was just kind of an awkward hit. There was nothing dirty about it or anything. He just kind of like.
No, he was he was hitting somebody else.
Yeah, he was hitting somebody else, and then he just kind of came up limp from it. Looked like maybe his skate got caught in a rut or something. He twisted something, but they say he's day-to-day, so hopefully he's good for the beginning of the season. However, Backstrom is week-to-week with a hip injury, correct?
Yes.
So we'll have to keep an eye on that one, see how long Backstrom's out.
And their center depth is now low.
Yeah. They still have Kuznetsov, if he can...
Keep his nose clean?
Yeah, keep his nose clean. For lack of a better phrase. But that's really all I got with my teams, news-wise.
I forgot one thing. John Cooper with Tampa Bay got a 3-year extension.
I saw that, I think that happened today.
Coach.
Yeah. Weirdly, the NHL doesn't usually divulge coaches' salaries. I guess now that I think about it, the NFL doesn't really do it either.
But, I mean...
Yeah, it's whatever.
3 years.
I mean, it doesn't, affect the cap or anything like that.
Remember 3 years ago, people were wondering if he could actually lead this team to a cup?
Boy, he shut them the fuck up, didn't he? They could, I think I said in the preview, they could win a third one. I don't think they have it, but... they are weaker, but they're definitely still a contender. Yeah. So, let's move on. There's a few overarching things we need to talk about, and then I think the last thing we'll talk about is the Olympics.
All right. So
you want to start?
I want to start.
Go ahead, yeah.
Because
Shaq in a Kraken jersey.
I mean, the man.
I'm sorry. We're inching ever closer to my dream of Shaq and Charles Barkley calling a game together and Shaq being between the boards. TNT, listen to me. That would be so fucking hilarious to see Shaq between the boards.
Shaq was between the boards.
He would dwarf everyone else.
That's amazing. Charles Barkley already loves hockey.
I know he does, but like there was a picture floating around of Shaq in a Kraken jersey, which
it's good.
Got my heart fluttering. That's it. That's not really a story. I'm just excited about it. Go ahead.
So the reason this all started is because of what's gone on with, again, Eichel.
Yeah. So
this starts everything.
For Jack Eichel.
Because it's been...
And I'm sure if you pay attention to any hockey media, you know Jack Eichel has not been traded yet.
100%. So Jack Eichel is still with Buffalo. It has been over 150 days since his camp said that there's been a disconnect. So what it comes down to is it's Jack Eichel's herniated disc in his neck.
Yeah.
What it comes down to is the treatment. Both of them want surgery.
Yeah.
Both sides want surgery.
It's just two differing surgeries that they want.
Yes. So Eichel wants a artificial disc replacement.
Yeah.
The team's doctors say fusion.
Yeah.
And that's the argument. And it's been what's been going on for a while. But Jack Eichel's friend, Robin Lehner
had something to say about it too.
Had something to say about it.
Oh, you want me? Oh, sure.
And why don't you take a little bit from
Robin Lehner, first, obviously, if you don't know, Robin Lehner is the goalie of the Vegas Golden Knights currently. And he played for Chicago before that, I believe. He played very well for Chicago.
The Islanders.
Oh, yeah, but he played really well for Chicago.
He's played for Chicago, Ottawa, Buffalo,
and the Islanders.
And
a couple of those teams were only like 1 or 2 years. Like, I think Chicago was only 1 year. I think the Islanders was only maybe 1 year as well. Yeah. But he did play for a while in Buffalo. Ottawa was where he started, but he was just kind of the backup there. But he went and started in Buffalo, where if you've been watching hockey for a while, he very famously got into like a rage fit one time on the ice because I think one of his teammates fucked something up. Or he was mad at the refs. I don't actually remember. But I remember that he took his mask off and was screaming at somebody.
And he is a big Swedish guy?
Dane?
No, he's not Dane.
I think he is Swedish.
But
I will double check that.
He is a big, scary Viking man.
He's a big dude, yeah.
But he's also... You don't want him screaming at you.
He's also struggled with mental health as well.
Yep.
So he's been far more. He is Swedish, yes. He has been fairly outspoken recently, and by recently I mean like the last 2 weeks. But just in general. But like when even more news came out about Eichel, Lehner was like, "Yeah, it's pretty fucked up that they're not letting him do what he wants to his body."
Yep.
And he's like, "That sounds familiar."
So he started talking about tweeting. He was going to tweet a different story every day about how...
God, I wish he had.
He got to 2.
Yeah, but the NHL was like, hey, stop doing that.
Well, okay, so we're getting there.
Yeah.
So he started tweeting a story every day about
mismanagement.
NHL teams mismanaging players. Very much alleging that coaches were giving opioids to the players without doctors' prescriptions.
And not telling the players what they were either, or how addictive they were.
Right. So, definitely benzos. He did
mention benzos.
And then he threw the Phillies guy under the bus.
Alain Vigneault. Yeah.
Yes. Threw the Phillies guy right under the bus. Day one.
Yeah.
Which everyone was just like, all right, so he talked to Nolan Patrick. Because...
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Nolan Patrick, from his time with the Phillies, his teammate in Vegas.
Yeah. Just like, ooh, hey, best friend. Guess what they did to me?
100%.
Ooh.
And his story number 2 was partly his own, because he was talking about his ankle in Ottawa.
Was it Ottawa?
Ottawa, yeah. He did say Ottawa.
So he kept tweeting things like that, which are, I'm going to choose to believe him, I suppose, because it wouldn't shock me.
I believe the Nolan Patrick thing did get corroborated.
See,
which
that's
is
so bad.
Which is why the
Boy, that makes
NHL
Phil-
was just like,
yeah.
hey, we should interview him.
Yeah, the NHL was like, they're at least feigning ignorance as an organization. Go for it. Hey. So they interviewed Robin Lehner. He stopped tweeting stories. But hopefully the NHL is looking into it. I don't think they're going to make anything public.
There was a video. Leonard did release it, and there was a video conference release talking about it, and he was very much coming away from his interview with the NHL from a positive light.
Yes, he did say that his interview with the NHL was very positive.
And is being less vocal about it. They were very nice.
You gotta not do that shit. That looks really bad for a league to be having that happen. After everything that's going on in Chicago, too, with all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, if you folks don't know, we're not going to go too far into it, but a former Chicago Blackhawks coach has been accused by many players of sexually assaulting them. So that's as far as I want to go into that story, but, that came out over the summer.
It was covered up.
It was covered up by Chicago. So, yeah, no good. And then, this on top of that, it's, really making the NHL look bad. Now, other leagues have similar maybe not. Well,
looking at you, New Orleans.
Yeah, have other shit going on.
Saints specifically, sorry.
But it's really bad look for a league that just got this new TV deal, just got a new team, will probably have a bunch of new fans. So they got to clamp down on this shit. I'm not saying cover it up. I'm saying tell teams, cut this shit out.
Actually...
take care of it.
Get people out of the league.
Yes. So I do recall Alain Vigneault is saying he had no idea what he was talking about. Of course, I think you're going to say that. But
there was the guy. There was another former player, who was talking about Montour.
Oh,
a guy from Chicago who is having concussion issues.
Yes.
He went
through
the team doctor.
I also think Paul Bissonnette, who is, I believe, is still on the Spit and Chicklets podcast, the hockey podcast. Yeah. I think he's either going to TNT or ESPN as well. So I don't know if he's going to continue to be on that podcast. But in either way, Paul Bissonnette, former NHL player, he was kind of, an enforcer type of player. But he basically agreed with Robin Lehner. He was like, dude, it was crazy when I played the shit they would just hand us and not tell us what it was.
So,
bad stuff.
Montour, I know that's not his name.
I'm sorry. No, Montador.
That's it.
It's similar. It's not Brandon Montour who was on Florida.
No, because the guy
Steve Montador, I think.
The guy I'm talking about is no longer alive.
No, he unfortunately passed away.
He had 19 concussions.
Yeah, he was pretty messed up.
He went to the same doctor who fixed Crosby after his concussions. But since that
quote unquote fixed.
But since that wasn't the team doctor, the alleged
Steve Montador.
They alleged that they blackballed him and sent him to the AHL once he got better.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of issues in hockey, especially with treating them.
They like to pretend
like they're robots, and once they're done, that's it.
They like to pretend that that concussions aren't a thing.
They had that lawsuit that got settled out of court.
Yeah.
So this really just goes into that whole.
It's that whole, and you'll hear us complain about this probably throughout the year, of just kind of the old boys club, or calling the guys that run the league dinosaurs, because they're so focused on the league being the way it was in the 80s and 90s, where it was just goon patrol. And if you talk to people, they'll be like, oh, hockey, that sport where guys are allowed to fight. And you can be like, yeah, but it hasn't really been that way since the last lockout.
Right.
They've really tried to make it more of a skill game. And one thing that so we'll probably complain about that throughout the year, because it seems like the refs still call the game like that, which is really frustrating to watch. And it's another thing with this whole new TV deal when you're like, oh, okay, this penalty is when a guy does this. And you're like, and you explain that to a new fan, and then that fan watches a game with you, and they're like, well, that guy did that. And you're like, yep. And they're like, well, he did it right in front of the ref. Why didn't they call a penalty? Like, don't know. It's because the refs decided not to call a penalty.
It's the same as football, and the refs are off.
It's so frustrating, especially in the playoffs, when the refs are just like, we're not going to call any penalties. And I'm like, oh, okay, so the lesser skilled teams can just grab and hold on to dudes, and they get a competitive advantage that way. So it's messed up. So kind of in keeping with that idea, just a last word on that whole Robin Leonard thing. NHL teams, fucking stop doing that. Don't give dudes drugs that they don't know what they are. Don't give them highly addictive drugs unless they really need them. You know? It's one thing to give somebody morphine if they have, like, a horrific back injury. Don't just, like, hand them benzos because, like, they have a bruise.
Right.
You know?
I will go back to Eichel real quick. So,
Sure.
So he wants the disc replacement, which his camp has said, hey, if we got this done 6 weeks ago, he would have been ready for camp.
Yeah.
And the fusion, apparently, there's a 25% chance that he's going to need surgery again after 10 years.
Why would they want to do that? I understand why he wouldn't want to do that, but in either direction,
Eichel is looking at his time after hockey.
Yeah, he should.
Team's not necessarily doing that.
But
Also, this is a one surgery. Like, that's
I
it.
know.
The other one also requires a checkup. Like,
yeah,
so...
I'm at the point now because I've seen reported a few times, and by the way, if you can't tell, we're not experts or like insiders at all. We're
idiots.
just like dum-dums that like watching hockey and like talking to each other about it, and now talking to you about it. But anyway, I've seen tweeted by the guys who do know that apparently I think maybe the NHL has stepped in and been like, hey, Buffalo, just fucking trade him. Because this needs to be resolved, because this is looking worse and worse and worse. And so...
And, like, I want Buffalo to do well.
I don't know that I want Buffalo to do well after all of this. I don't know.
And more the fans.
For the fans I would love them to do well. I don't know for the owners.
Yeah, fair.
Either way, I have seen reported that the trade talks are progressing, albeit slowly. So we might see a resolution in the coming weeks, but I wouldn't hold your breath. And I've seen that teams are now like, maybe we do conditional things with this trade, just in case he really drops off.
The man has already said, I don't care what team I go to.
Yeah, he doesn't give a shit now. He just doesn't want to be on Buffalo.
Exactly. And, like, unfortunately, you don't get to a worse team than Buffalo, but...
Maybe Arizona.
I don't know.
But, yeah.
The only reason that Buffalo's fighting this so hard is because this...
Oh, get ready. Hey.
Surgery has never happened to a hockey player before.
That doesn't mean that they shouldn't do it.
They've been doing this surgery for 20 years.
Oh, sure.
So, just never to a professional
I might have to have it
player.
in my back eventually. So.
Look at you.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that. I'm self-diagnosing. But anyway, so moving away from that kind of like more darker news, we're going to talk about... So, the league has announced that they're going to be more strict, quote-unquote, on cross-checking this year.
Sure.
Bullshit you are. Because if you pay attention to games, you'll see like 50 cross-checks a game. Like, from both teams.
It's fun to watch.
It is until people get hurt.
It's fun to watch until players lose. It's fun to watch players lose their cool and then spear the guy who was cross-checking.
Yeah, and then they get a penalty.
I know, right?
But, like, you'll watch a game and you'll see one guy cross-check another guy 4 times in a row in, like, 5 seconds, and they call nothing. So, that's always been one of the most frustrating things, because I'll be watching a game like, cross-check, oh, okay, we're not going to call anything. That's great. Like, slash, cool. They need new refs. They need to... I'm sorry. I'm sorry if any NHL ref listens to this, but, like, what the fuck are you guys doing? I understand that you're probably calling the game like you're told to be called the game for the most part, but, like, call a fucking penalty. It's more fun to watch offense than watching just a 1-0 game where everybody holds everybody else. Nobody wants the 90s hockey. Nobody wants that dead puck era anymore, as it's referred to.
Yeah.
So I doubt that they'll call cross-checking more stringently. Or if they do, they'll do it at the beginning of the year.
And that's it.
And then it'll just peter off like it does every year.
And
get your shit together, refs.
Cross-checking always happens in front of the goalie. Always.
Yeah. Or it's center ice where everybody can see it and they still don't call a penalty.
And that's what blows my mind.
I hate it. I hate it. All right, so I think those were all
rants over.
Oh, there will be plenty of rants, especially at refs this year, I'm sure, because they're just always consistently bad. But it's
a hard job, but
sure. Look, if you miss a call here and there, that's fine. Nobody's perfect. But if a dude fucking slashes a guy's hand off right in front of you, call him for slashing. Oh my god. Anyway, let's go on to something a little bit more fun, and this will be the end of the episode. So most of the nations that are participating in ice hockey this year at the Winter Olympics, which I believe are in February, have announced their
Beijing?
Yes, have announced their first 3 players for the teams. Now, what that probably tells me is that one of these players is the captain, and the other 2 are probably the alternate captains for those teams. If I had to guess, just based on the players that I'm about to name, I guess except for one because he's a goalie, but goalies cannot be captains or alternate captains.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. They used to be able to be captains and alternates.
Because Lugano.
Luongo.
Yep.
They wanted him to be captain.
Gotcha.
But the NHL was like, no, it's against the rules. But the reasoning is because the captain is always the one that goes and talks to the ref about what was just called or whatever. So you'll always see guys like Crosby or Ovechkin or McDavid talking to the ref, and a lot of people misconstrue that as they're
bitching.
They're bitching at the ref. No, that's what the captain is supposed to do, to be like,
it's their job.
What happened? Oh, you called tripping? Are you sure? Well, that happened over there too, and you didn't call it, stuff like that. That's the conversation that's happening. There is quite a bit of bitching from players. Crosby used to do it a lot, but he's a bit better.
He was a 20-year-old captain.
Exactly.
So,
there is that too.
Who is getting slashed like a motherfucker.
So speaking of Crosby, we'll start with Canada. Crosby was one of the 3 members announced for Canada, along with McDavid and Alex Pietrangelo. That doesn't surprise me. I would imagine that Crosby is probably the captain, and those other 2 are the alternates. It would just make sense. He's the most veteran of the 3 of them. And then you have an alternate in McDavid. Makes sense. He's a captain of his own team. And then Pietrangelo, an alternate on defense.
Yeah.
So, not a lot of these aren't surprising that they're being named to their national teams. Moving on just in alphabetical order, the Czech Republic named Ondrej Palat, David Pastrnak, and Jacob Voracek to their team. Makes sense.
Yep.
Finland has Aho Barkov and Mikko Rantanen. Again, all 3 of those guys make sense. I would guess Barkov is probably the captain.
I would guess.
Just based off of age.
Yeah.
As for the Czech, maybe Voracek. Just again, based off of age. But I could see Pastrnak also being the captain. All right, moving on to Germany. They have Draisaitl, who I would almost guarantee is the captain.
100%.
Grubauer, who is the goalie, and Moritz Seider, if you don't know, is a young defenseman from Detroit. Very young. I think he's 20 or 21, something like that. Okay, let's move on to Latvia. I wrote their names out because I wasn't 100% sure who these guys were. They have one of their first guys is Rudolf Balcers, who I believe plays for San Jose. Next is Zemgus Girgensons, who I think is
love those names.
I think he's still on Buffalo. I'm not 100% certain about
I don't know
that,
anymore.
I at least recognize his name. And then Christians Rubens, who I have no idea who that is. I'm sure he's in the NHL somewhere, but don't know. Moving on to Russia, they named Kucherov, Ovechkin, and Vasilevsky. Ovi's definitely the captain, I would think.
They're all no-brainers.
They're all no-brainers. I would say one of the other no-brainers is probably Malkin if he's healthy by then.
Yeah.
But I still think that Ovechkin would be the captain, regardless. Moving on to Slovakia, they have Chernak, Halak, and Sekera. I would think Sekera's the captain.
It can't be Halak.
It can't be Halak, and Chernak is on the younger side. Yeah. Switzerland has Nico Hischier, Roman Josi, and Timo Meyer. Those are much better players from Switzerland than I actually thought were from Switzerland. Sweden, you have Victor Hedman, Gabriel Landeskog, and as we mentioned before,
Mika Zibanejad.
The
bad man.
I don't know who's the captain there between Hedman and Landeskog.
I would say probably Hedman.
I don't know. Landeskog's the captain of Colorado.
It's true, but
know. We'll have to see. That'll be interesting. And then finally with the USA, Seth Jones, Patrick Kane, and Austin Matthews. Patrick Kane is the captain there. And only Denmark and China have not announced who they're going to be their first three players.
Who's going to be from China?
I don't know. They're going to lose by a lot of goals. Unfortunately, if you don't know, China is in the same grouping as the United States and Canada.
Oh, those poor bastards.
That's really not fair for the host team.
Those poor bastards.
Who's the other team in their division? It might be Germany. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Even Germany's going to...
Or maybe it's the Czechs. In either direction, all three of those teams are going to beat the shit out of China. Poor China. China is not known for...
The powerhouse, China.
China is not known for their hockey. They basically got in because they're hosting this year. So, that's nice for them. But
it's like the World Cup.
Oh, boy. I can't imagine how bad those games between Canada and China and the United States and China are going to be. Because Canada and the United States are probably two of the better teams. Mm-hmm. The other ones... it would be the same thing if they were playing Finland, Sweden, or Russia as well. They would get annihilated. And probably Germany with Draisaitl.
Yep.
He'd probably just walk right around it. So I'm sorry, China. You're going to get destroyed. Watch them beat the United States. That would be so frustrating.
It's not going to be fun for them.
It's not going to be a fun watch for China at the Olympics. But, probably for everybody playing them.
Yep.
So they're not going to make the medal round, unfortunately.
Pad them stats.
Pad them stats for the
everyone else.
International stats. So a friend of mine suggested that we give a little beer review at the end of the episode as well.
These are yummy.
These are really good. Again, this is Eric Moore Cowbell by Single Cut Brewsmiths in Astoria, New York. That's just across the river from Manhattan.
It's the closest we could get for
closest that we could find. I'm sure there's beers in Manhattan, and I'm sorry, people of Manhattan that are listening.
Again, we're trying to do.
We're trying. We're going to try our best. We might have to resort to doing beers from that state.
Looking at you, Labatt's.
Canada might be a little hard. We'll try to do better. We're definitely going to drink Molson for Montreal, I think, because they own Montreal, so it just at least makes sense. But but these beers are really good. It's a stout.
It is a stout.
Yeah, stout.
It's a nitro.
Chocolate milk stout with vanilla and nitro. Pretty good. Very easy to drink too. Mm-hmm. I noticed while we were doing this. So yeah, that's another episode in the books. This one's a little shorter. Less to talk about this time.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah, we will see you next week. We'll actually be talking about games. First games start tomorrow. I think there's only two. It's Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay.
And Kraken.
The Kraken. And
Golden
Vegas.
Knights.
Yeah,
Yep.
And the two most recent teams also. So that'll be pretty exciting. I'm excited because I'm off the days following that, so I'm going to watch both of those games, probably. And I want to see if Shaq is at that game.
Yes.
Let him play goal. Nobody will score on him. He'll just stand in front.
He's too big. He can't move.
Okay. Again, TNT. Just hear me out. Shaq in between the boards. It'll be so funny. He'll tower above every player on the ice, even if Zdeno Chara is there.
He's 6'9" with skates?
I think skates add 2 inches, so he would be 6'11". Shaq's 7'3".
Oh.
So it'll just be so funny. Just jam him in that box where Pierre Maguire was, because you don't have Pierre Maguire anymore for many good reasons.
All right, we got.
Okay, we got to run.
All right, bye.
Make sure you guys follow us at Buzzed Pucks on Twitter, and shout out to our number one fan and our first follower, Tom. We appreciate you, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye bye.